Welcome to Andy D. Cole's podcast. Please like, share and subscribe.
Welcome to Andy D. Cole's podcast. Press like and subscribe.
Welcome to Andy Decodes. Sit back and enjoy as we dive deeper down into the rabbit hole and into the unknown.
Hello, and welcome to today's show, where I'm joined by my wonderful new co-host, Nicole. When she pops up, she'll say hello. And one of the most amazing guys in the world, Mr. D.A. Roberts. So a little info about the man himself. He is a digital creator. He's a host of D.A Machina podcast. He's a farmer safety and security at Silver Dollar City, farmer reserve patrolman at Walnut Grove Police Department, farmer public safety officer at CoxHealth, and former deputy sheriff at Greene County Sheriff's Office. He's also a cryptozoologist, researcher, writer, podcaster, speaker, retired cop. He's from Missouri, still lives in Missouri with his wife and sons. And he's just wrote loads and loads of books. He's been on Coast to Coast. And yeah, if you don't know who he is, then there is something wrong with you. So welcome to the show.
Well,
it's true. It really is so true.
Thanks for having me on.
It's great. Like I've been trying to get you to come on, but it's like trying to find the gap and fit you in. And yeah, it was.
Oh, I get it, man. Schedules get nuts sometimes.
I know. I started off just doing Fridays, then I started doing Wednesdays, and then about 2 months ago, I'm like, I'm not doing Wednesdays anymore. And now Wednesday and Friday are the permanent ones, and I'm considering doing another day as well. So.
That'll keep you busy.
Just a little bit. Well, yeah, thank you for coming on. So, I have the first question for you. So
Fire away.
It's regarding your books. So, because Nick Vlanty was on the other week, and I know you do write a lot of people, like characters in there as the person who they are and their name. How true to life can you tell us that the stuff that you put in the books are?
Well, I try to make the people that are based on as realistic as close to the person as possible. So anytime I use an actual location or a real person, I try to be as absolute spot on as possible. But the creatures that you do that I describe in the books, I've based the behaviors of the creatures in the books off of almost 4 decades of research.
Yeah. So I'm like you said. So the research that you do, I suppose that's the kind of truth that you're putting into the books.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've always believed that the best stories, the best even fiction stories, have some basis in reality. And for any story to be believable, there has to be something that connects the reader to the story. And when people make those connections and they can see pieces of themselves in the story, that's when the story really becomes more than just a story. It's not just something like it's words on page. It becomes more of an immersive experience.
Yeah. So how easy do you find it to write this style of book? Because a lot of it is science fiction, isn't it? Really. But
Very true.
like,
Um,
there's a lot of truth in there as well.
Well, you try to make, things behave the way they would. I mean, you don't want to, you don't want too much fantastical happenings,
No.
like combat scenes, or when I'm describing gunplay. It's based on stuff I've done. I want it to be
Yeah.
very realistic. One thing I do when I'm writing a fight scene, that has really kind of surprised a lot of people, is I'll take a blank piece of paper and I will write down the names of everybody that's involved in the fight. And every time I, like write a scene, like, say Daniel Clark fired 3 times, I'll make 3 little tick marks next to him, so I know exactly when they have to change magazines. So you don't get this, he fired 40 times out of a weapon without reloading.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it is pretty much how it would be in real
Right.
life. Yeah. So what came first with you? Was it the author, or the crypto, or the investigator, or
Well,
did it all kind of come at the same time?
It kind of evolved together. I grew up on a farm in the 1970s, and back then, we got, on a clear day, we got 2 TV channels. I didn't watch much TV. There were no such thing as video games, so I spent a good chunk of my formative years outside. And if the weather was bad and I had to stay inside, my nose was in a book. My mother inspired a deep love of reading and writing in me as a very young child, and then about the time I saw the Patterson Gimlin footage, which was in the mid 70s, they just kind of grew together. And it's, I've always wanted to be a writer, and I've always enjoyed it, digging into folklore and learning about creatures that aren't supposed to exist. The fascination just continued to grow as I got older, and it just kind of developed in tandem, I suppose.
Yeah. Cool. So have you ever wrote about something that you thought, oh, that'd be a good, like a creature or an entity that you wasn't sure that existed, and then over the next whatever period, people started seeing it? So I suppose you kind of like manifested it,
like a creepypasta. I haven't had that happen to me personally. I tend to stick to known cryptids and legends. I haven't really introduced my own creatures just yet, but that will be coming in the near future.
Ooh.
We'll see how it works out.
Yeah. So how often do you write the books? Because you've got so many out.
I've got 30 in print currently. I write pretty much every day. Since my health scare this last week, I haven't written much, but I tend to spend at least 4 to 6 hours every day writing on something.
Wow. Even if it's just ideas and not the story, or just whatever it is.
Right. I try to be working on something.
Yeah.
D.A, I have a question for you. Andy, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
See me, I'm driving home. I'm trying to drive quick. So you're in the law enforcement field, correct?
I'm retired.
You are. You were retired. Okay. Have you received any pushback, from people in that field about what you do now?
Well, I kind of kept that aspect of myself quiet while I was active, but since I'm retired and I've started just being very vocal about it, I've actually found a great deal of support. I mean, I've a lot of former officers that I know that are retired now. They're like 100% with me, and like, hey, I've heard about this story. You should check it out. Or in case of one of my old lieutenants, we will actually go out in the woods together. But I found actually far more support than I expected. I figured people would be like, oh, he's crazy, that kind of thing. But to be honest, the support has really been awesome.
Cool. Yeah. So when you was in law enforcement, did you get many reports of strange goings on that were due to high strangeness and not some nut job? So
we've got gotten some weird reports over the years. When I was out at Walnut Grove, which is a little town of about 600 people, and
right.
it's very rural. I mean, the town is just basically surrounded by farmland and woods. We would get strange prowler reports, and you would never find anything. We'd go out, run spotlight, get out and walk around the house. But I always suspected they didn't really want to say what they thought was trying to get into their house. But it would be usually at the same time of night every night. We wouldn't get them before like 2 a.m. But I have actually experienced some kind of bizarre supernatural things as an officer. Seen a couple of full body apparitions. I spent over an hour chasing a shadow creature one night because I thought it was a person that got into a building. Finally, I trapped it in a corner where it couldn't have gotten out, and then it was just gone.
Right. Wow. Sorry, I was just reading one of the comments. I weren't sure.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry about that. I've not froze, I promise. So when you was out in, sorry, I can't remember. You said it was in the town of like 600 people.
Walnut Grove.
Yeah, that was it. Sorry. Did you ever find any evidence of anything happen, like footprints, scratch marks, anything? Just
I've seen phantom lights out there. I've seen figures move between buildings, but nothing I could ever chase down. And my old chief out there, he really dug into the history of that little town. And back during the late 1800s, Missouri had a massive cholera outbreak, and Walnut Grove used to be a railroad hub. And St. Louis and Kansas City would both send freight cars full of dead to Walnut Grove for burial. And there are multiple mass graves out there, and you can still find them. I mean, I could take you right to them, but there are numerous mass graves out there, along with some pretty old cemeteries as well, stuff dating back to the Civil War.
Wow. That's it's awesome, but it's also pretty creepy as well.
It's a little creepy.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a couple of questions for you. First one is from Nickname. What area of high strangeness do you find difficult to write about or yet to cover?
I don't really find any of them difficult to write about, but there are some things that do creep me out. They're like when I start talking in the book, the Lakeview Man, that first encounter that he has is based on a story I actually collected from another officer. And I've been out in the woods as a cop, walking out looking for prowlers, and heard things moving that I can't find, that I can't catch. And so, when I write certain scenes, I put elements of my own personal experience into it, and that really kind of brings back some of those memories. And there's been a few times I've had to get up, walk away, go get a cup of coffee. All right, I need to calm down a minute. I'm getting a little creeped out here.
Breathe a little bit.
That's right.
One of those moments. Yeah. So when you was out in the field, when you was a cop, did you ever? Because I suppose, I don't know, did you have a colleague with you, or was you out on your own, or was it a bit of a mix of the two?
Usually I was on my own, but once in a while we'd roll with a partner.
Yeah. So when you go out on your own, you go investigate something, and it wasn't something like out of the ordinary. Did you ever get really spooked about it?
I've had those moments where you would hear the normal night sounds like crickets and tree frogs and stuff, and I've had those moments when I'd got out of a car and went to check a building and everything just go dead quiet, and that's when you're like, something's going on.
In the car.
It's a little bizarre when the woods go just dead quiet around you.
Yeah. So have you? So I know I keep going on about it, but have you ever gone to somewhere and it's messed you up that much that you've had to call for backup and you've still not found anything?
I've called a couple of other officers in the past. I'm like, hey, I need to get somebody over here, and we've checked. There was an empty building that I would have sworn I saw somebody in the building, and we did. There was no way they could have gotten out past us. So we didn't find anything, and those are creepy moments. And there's an old storefront down in Walnut Grove. The building's condemned. I mean, if you breathed on it really hard, it would probably fall over. It's really in bad shape. No electricity to it, no water or anything. And but I've seen lights on in the upper part of that store late at night.
Yeah.
And there's literally no way anyone could get up there because the stairway to the upper floors collapsed.
Ah, right. Okay. Have you ever been, since leaving the force, have you ever been back to any of these places?
Oh yeah. I go to a lot of these places quite frequently. Sometimes I go for inspiration, sometimes just to visit old friends. But I love going out and spending time in the Mark Twain National Forest and just walking around. There's lots of places around here that in Missouri that are still very rural. I know you guys living in the UK, you guys could get in the car and in an afternoon you could go to France and Germany. It's not like that over here. And I could drive for 6 hours and not hit the other end of Missouri.
Wow. So how big is Missouri?
Missouri is not one of the biggest states. I mean, you can go to Texas and drive for 16 hours and not leave Texas. Missouri's fairly good size. I would say, if I had to guess, I would say square miles, Missouri's comparable to the UK and Scotland combined.
Wow. So about 800 ish.
Yeah, it's pretty good sized.
Yeah.
A lot of dense woods.
Yeah. So do you go out of Missouri to do investigating, or even for inspiration to write stuff?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've gone to the land between the lakes in Kentucky. I've gone down to some of the old abandoned campgrounds down by Table Rock Lake. I'm always looking for interesting places to go investigate and see what I can find.
Yeah. Cool. I've got some more questions for her, if that's all right. This one is again from Nickname. I think it's a follow-on from the first question. She's asking, what are your influences in this subject?
Oh, there's so many fantastic writers. I mean, I could spend half an hour just listing off writers that have inspired me. Early Stephen King, H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, Dean Koontz. I mean, there's so many fantastic writers out there, and I've read so many different authors. And I believe that as an author, you have an obligation to read other stories because I think that's how you truly polish your own. You have to study your craft, just like in any other field. You've got to really apply yourself and study your craft if you want to be good at it.
Yeah, definitely. Nicknames just put Bram Stoker.
Yes, I've read Bram Stoker. I love Bram Stoker. I've read Mary Shelley. It's really interesting when you start digging into both Bram Stoker and the Mary Shelley stories, just how much real world incidents they drew on to create those stories.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. Next question is from Joe, the moderator, the one that you spoke to before we come on air. And she's asking, what's your favorite series that you've written about?
I generally say whichever book I'm working on at the moment is my favorite, but I'm having a lot of fun with the Dark Frontiers series. Dark Frontiers is set in 1865, right at the end of the American Civil War, and it's just a lot of fun to write. It's plays on my love of history, my love of cryptids, and that are also very high action. So those have been a lot of fun to write.
Cool, thank you. Next question is from Sober Carper. And he's asking, have you found any common links between the different phenomena, i.e. UFOs, cryptids, etc.?
Well, you get lots of encounter stories from people that had seen lights in the sky right after or right before a cryptid sighting. There are a lot of theories out there that connect the two. And I think there are certain areas where they do overlap. But me personally, and I know this is not everybody's cup of tea, so to speak. But me personally, I just think most cryptids, with the exception of the Wendigo, are just animals. If we've got an alien species that traveled across the galaxy to study us, then why wouldn't they study any bipedal creature on the planet? So to me, it just makes sense that if there's a UFO sighting seen near a Bigfoot sighting, maybe they were watching them as well.
Yeah, I've always thought that. So saying the other day, lately, or for the last few years, there's always been, or not always, but it's quite common to be a UFO or orb sighting near Bigfoot, Dogman, or Sasquatch. They just seem to go hand in hand at the moment.
Well, since the government has basically come forward and said that UFOs are a thing, they're no longer really denying it. So much footage has been released. I think now that the veil has kind of been pulled back from that, I think it's opening the possibility for a lot of other sightings. And shows like yours and mine have given people a forum where they can talk about these things. So I think that's a big part of why we're seeing a lot more sighting reports, is simply people feel more comfortable coming forward than they ever have before, because a lot of the stigma has been removed.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with you on that one. Next question is, I'm going to jump to a question. It's only because it's related to what he was talking about. So this is from UFO Joe. He's asking, DA, did you feel anything when you cornered that shadow?
Well, when I was chasing it, it was on a mechanical floor of the hospital. There was no access to anybody that didn't have a badge. Maintenance was not on the floor. I was just checking equipment. I was just walking through just to make sure. And I saw a shadow move between two pieces of large equipment. And then I started chasing. I'm like, hey, who's back here? And I chased them to an area over by the elevators. And the elevators could only be activated with a card from that floor. You couldn't just push a button and jump on. Plus, those elevators were slow as heck. They rounded the corner, and I ran toward the elevators, and I rounded the corner toward the elevators. There were no elevators shutting. There were no elevators even on the floor, so that it's not like they didn't get on an elevator. There was no stair access for them to have gone. They were just gone. And when I realized I'd been chasing something that just disappeared, it was like somebody grabbed the back of my body armor and poured ice water down, and I was like, okay. Look at the time. It's time to be somewhere else right now.
Time to be in bed. Yeah,
right
here. Yeah. That's not the best feeling, is it? But
no, that's a point where you just make sure all the doors are locked and go on your merry way.
Yeah, but do you not find though when you do get them feelings that it's like it's kind of a this is what's going on, and it's hard to explain. This is what's going on. It's not normal, but you need to accept it, sort of thing.
Right. You can't just pretend it didn't happen. But part of you knows this is not in the realm of normal things. So it doesn't exactly go into the official report, but it's one of those things that you still have to take note of and accept.
Yeah. No, cheers for that. Got loads of questions tonight. This is good. This is from Joe again. Do you have a favorite cryptid? If so, which one?
Oh, my heart of hearts, it's always going to be Bigfoot. That was the first one I ever heard of as a kid. That's the one I've dug into the most, and it's always going to be the one that's nearest and dearest. Although I do enjoy digging into Dogman and other legends. I've really become fascinated with the Ozarks Howler, which is a legend from here in the Midwest. But Bigfoot will always be near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. Have you ever, or do you believe that you've ever seen one or encountered one?
Although I didn't see it, I had 2 encounters on my uncle's land that there's really nothing else it could have been. I had something approach my deer stand in the darkness, and I had a deer stolen.
Oh. Yeah, they're not easy things to take away.
You don't just throw one over your shoulder and walk away. That's probably in the ballpark of 200 pounds worth of deer that just walked away.
And it's not. Yeah, they're not like you can just go over and pick it up. It's not like a cat or a small dog, is it?
Right. And it was dead. I knew for sure it was dead.
Yeah. So did you hear anything when that was going on?
Not then. The first time, yes, I heard something approach my deer stand.
Yeah.
But the second time, I didn't hear a thing.
And the deer didn't make any noise.
No, the deer was I was certain it was down. I had got it at a range of about 75 yards with a British Enfield 303, and it dropped immediately. So I knew I had it good. But by the time I got down on my deer stand and got over to where it had got up and staggered off, and it dropped down into a ravine, an old dry creek bed.
Yeah,
and it was
yeah,
about 20 feet down, and I could look down and see the deer. It was done. It was laying there just dead.
yeah, yeah.
So I had to backtrack down the creek bed to find a place where I could climb down because it was a pretty good drop onto rocks. So I didn't want to break a leg or anything down there.
No.
So I climbed down, make my way back, and I was gone maybe 15, 20 minutes. When I got back, I could find the leaf litter where it had fallen. There was a tremendous amount of blood where it had obviously bled out, but the deer was gone. And there wasn't another drop of blood, not a track, nothing. Because I tracked out every direction I could go, and it was just gone.
And 15 minutes really isn't long.
No, and if it had been gotten by coyotes tend to eat right where they find something. They would have been, I would have heard them, and I would have seen bits and pieces scattered everywhere because coyotes tear something apart. We didn't have wolves in Missouri at the time. We didn't have black bear at the time either, but a black bear could have dragged it off. However, there would have been drag marks. I would have been able to find it. Same thing with a mountain lion. Mountain lion could have dragged it off, but I would have found drag marks. It's not like it just picked it up, chucked it over its shoulder, and walked away. Whatever took the deer was smart enough to use the rocky terrain features to avoid leaving tracks, and I never found the deer.
Wow. That is an amazing story. With it being first hand as well and not one that's been passed on.
It was creepy. Yeah, it was definitely very creepy.
Have you been back there since?
Not since my uncle passed. That was on my uncle's land out near Eldridge, Missouri, which I know you're not familiar with how the Ozarks are, but Eldridge isn't exactly civilization as most people think of it. Eldridge is like a small gas station, a couple of houses, and a post office, and that's it.
Oh, no.
And he lives like 10 miles outside of that.
No, I have heard about Eldridge. It was in a documentary I was watching on Amazon.
Huh. Little bitty Eldridge. That's funny.
He was either Dogman or Bigfoot. And without watching it back, I can't remember. I just remember the name because one of my friends has got that. That's his surname.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you happen to find the name of that, I would love to check that out.
It should be on the watch history. So if I find it, I'll let you know what it is.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Hi, Nicole, again.
Hi. Sorry about the technical difficulties before. I thought I could drive and talk.
Yeah. Have you got any questions for DA?
So what is the most fun cryptid to write about? I know you said your favorite was Bigfoot, but is there anyone that really stands out that's more exciting to write about?
I liked writing about Dogman because everybody, even as kids, were terrified of werewolves. And I think, that really preys on a base instinct that we all have, because not everybody can relate to seeing, a large bipedal ape in the woods, but everybody can relate to, oh my God, that's a freaking werewolf. So I think those are the most fun for me to write because I can really ratchet the terror up with those.
Yeah, that definitely is something that everybody can relate to, I think, the whole werewolf fear. Do you think that the werewolves were based on Dogman? Like the whole myth?
I think the werewolf legend grew up because of Dogman. Although the term Dogman didn't exist until the late 1990s. You can go back through old newspaper articles and place names. They would call them Wolfman, call them a Wolfman, or there's a place in Tennessee called Werewolf Springs because of an incident that happened back in the late 1800s. But prior to that, both Marco Polo and Christopher Columbus wrote of encountering these dog-headed creatures on their journeys. The Romans and the Greeks both have detailed listings of fighting them, both in the Indus Valley in India and over in northern Africa, and they referred to them as the cynocephali. So the stories of these creatures is nothing new. It's just the name Dogman is, and kind of given a new perspective on it.
I know you said that that it was kind of worldwide, the stories of Dogman. Some people say that Dogman is more of like a Native American spirit. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's more global than that. I think the Native Americans certainly understood, like the Cherokee refer to a Dogman creature as the Ulonga Doglala, which basically means spirit with knife teeth. So they knew about them. They've encountered them before. But if you're familiar, are you guys familiar with the Piri Rice map?
No.
Sorry.
The Piri Rice map was found in Egypt. They believe it belonged to a Turkish admiral, and they found it in the 1500s. But the map is believed to be a copy of a much older map. The Piri Rice map is a map of Antarctica without ice on it. And when they first discovered it, they didn't know what it was. But it wasn't until 1972 when the Navy did sonar soundings of the ice shelf in Antarctica. They're like, "Hey, wait a minute! This map is accurate. It is a hand drawn map, drawn sometime in the 1500s of Antarctica without ice on it. And if you look in the margins on that map, because copies of it still exist, if you look in the margins on that map, you will see drawings of both Bigfoot and Dogman-like creatures."
Yes, I do know about it. Sorry, there's one of the guys in the chat, Forrest Rye. He's told me about this map from whenever it was, and he said, "He goes, you look clearly, you can see a picture of a dogman." He didn't mention the Bigfoot, but you might not have noticed that. But yeah, that's the one that mate Ryan's got.
It's pretty interesting when you start studying it. I'm looking to pick up a very as high resolution a copy of the map as I can get, so I can zoom in and study in detail. But so far, all I've been able to find is fairly low resolution copies.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I have seen copies of maps like that show Antarctica, as green and place where life is, but that was always more tied to the whole ancient civilization theories, that cryptids. But it's interesting to think that they may go hand in hand, like these ancient civilizations may have had more knowledge about the cryptids than we do.
I think they did. I mean, we will never know what we lost when we lost the Library of Alexandria, but I bet there was a great deal of information in there about these types of creatures, because at no point in human history, other than right now, have there only been one hominid on the planet.
No.
It seems odd to me that from the earliest known histories, we've had multiple types of bipedal hominids walking around, but suddenly you get to the modern era and there's nothing left. I think there's enough dark recesses of this planet where plenty of things could exist that we don't know about. There are areas of northern Canada that they believe that no human has ever been. Some of the deep forests of northern Canada up near the Arctic Circle. There are places here in Missouri in the Mark Twain National Forest that may not have seen a human in 100 years. I mean, just these woods are so dense and there's so much of it. We can't claim we're the masters of this planet when we haven't explored it all.
Yeah, for sure. And there's all these tribes that they come across when they're exploring new lands that have never seen another human outside of their direct tribe. Right. So you never know what's out there.
No, true story. Right. I've got a question. I've been thinking, I heard something the other day and I've been thinking about it all day today. Have you heard of the cat people?
I have heard a few felinoid stories, but it's not something I've collected much of. There are a number of places that those reports do pop up, but I really don't know much about them simply because it's so rare to hear one.
Yeah. See, I think I've only heard like one or two, and there wasn't much detail in it.
Right.
It was seen like, I don't know if it was walking down the street or running past somebody, and then that was it. It's like less than a minute worth of evidence.
Right. And even in some of those cases, makes you wonder if it wasn't just misidentification. Like in cases of the Gugway, which is a type of Bigfoot that they believe has a pronounced snout like a mandrill or a baboon. I think some dogman sightings might have actually been them because they're reported to be extremely aggressive.
Yeah.
I know,
Nicole?
Cat people or anything like that movie Cats, I'm out. You see that? That was a creepy movie.
I got told not to watch it, so I never did.
Yeah, I haven't watched it either. I heard, don't waste your time. You're not going to like it.
Nope.
Yeah, but apparently there's some like a civilization of these cat people as well, but no one seems to know anything.
Well, considering how predatory cats are, I don't know that I'd want to meet one that was, 7 feet tall and 250 pounds, because we would definitely be on the menu. And I can tell you from, going to scenes with unattended bodies, house cats will start to eat you after a day or so. So a large bipedal cat would certainly see us as something edible.
Yeah, they probably won't even wait for you to stop breathing, would they?
They go after the soft bits first. They'll go get your nose, they'll get your cheeks, and they'll start taking the skin off the fingers.
Oh, nice.
It's gone a little dark.
Yeah, it's why I won't ever own a cat.
Moving on. Right, next question is from Chiro Sounds, and they're asking, have you ever heard a cryptid speak in English or even one word spoken out loud?
I have not. I've never experienced hearing what sounded like words. I've talked to people who have. I'm not going to discount their experience, but it's never happened to me.
Okay, thank you.
What is the cryptid that mimics?
The Wendigo is reported to mimic people. The Native Americans say not to whistle in the woods at night because it will attract one. But they would mimic the sounds of babies crying or even voices to try to draw people away from camp. Yeah. Make them easier to pick off.
Yeah.
Glad I'd never heard that one either. Anybody talking in the woods?
Yeah, if you hear somebody call your name in the woods, I wouldn't go, especially late at night.
Have you heard that about the Appalachia? That whole thing. If you hear your name in the woods at night, no, you didn't.
Well, there've been not cryptid. There've been Wendigo sightings. Colorado has had them. It's not just a Canadian thing. They are kind of the spirit of famine. They tend to follow really rugged rural areas, and any place at times could get lean, especially mountains and places that experience really bad winters.
Yeah. Oh, right. Just quickly. So we're saying about cat people. Joe's just found this. So Cat People is a 1982 American supernatural horror film.
I remember that movie.
Oh, I didn't even know there's a movie about it. I thought it was like it. I should have read it all before I put it up. I thought it was an actual someone's encounter. Joe, don't do that again.
I remember that movie because it came out shortly after I started. Well, actually, shortly before I started working at a movie theater in Lebanon, Missouri. When I was a teenager, I ran a projector at a movie theater, and I watched a lot of those old cheesy movies.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm gonna have to go and watch that now. Not now, but in a bit, like over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that one out too. It was a little before my time, but
yeah, I said I've not heard of that, but I'll give it a blast, see how it is. Next question is from I don't know what it is because it's one on Facebook. It just says Facebook user, but it's saying, DA, hope your Thanksgiving was good. Have you ever seen anything while patrolling the cemetery that you can explain?
I've seen shadows move in a cemetery, and I've seen fog just start forming out of nowhere, just start appearing over the cemetery. There's an old cemetery out at Walnut Grove. It's right in town, and it's right where two of those mass graves are. I was parked across the street from it one time, filling out a report. It was about 2:00 in the morning. I was just sitting there minding my own business, watching the main part of town for anybody that would run the intersection. And just for whatever reason, I looked over to my left at that cemetery, and I could see the fog was like getting thicker and thicker and moving toward the car. I'm like, time to go. Put it in gear and went on my way.
Valid response.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Next question is from Simon Riley. He's asking, have you ever been told not to report anything you or anyone else had seen?
I've never really had a supervisor tell me not to do that, but I've always just been very cautious about what I would put in reports. I would put things like saw an unknown suspect in an old abandoned building. After a search, we found no one. They must have gotten away or got out of the building somehow. I would never come out and say, that I saw something unexplainable. I was very guarded about what I put in my reports, because the last thing you want to do as an officer is, get sent out for a psych eval, and then you're never going to be on the witness stand again.
Right.
It's interesting. different experiences within law enforcement, because I know a couple people who are in the paranormal field and law enforcement, and some of them can talk about things very openly, and some of them are not able to and can't even post publicly about what they
Well,
do.
if you're still active in law enforcement, you're risking your career by coming forward with stuff like this, because defense attorneys will destroy you if they find out anything like that. That's why I kept mine very close to the vest. We kept very quiet about it. But then you get guys that are former law enforcement; they're more than happy to tell you creepy stories. And in fact, I've collected some of my best Bigfoot encounter stories from other cops. But in a lot of those cases, some of those guys are still cops, and I'm allowed to tell the story, but not who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to lose credibility because people are thinking you're off
Right.
chasing Bigfoot,
No.
because then they tear you apart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. Then it is game over, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Then you have a lot of time to chase Bigfoots because you won't be working anymore.
That's right.
Yeah. And you'll never
you'll
find
be working
one,
at a
right?
mall as security.
Got another question for you. This is from the Dogman UK. He's asking, question DA, has any of this ever followed you home after encountering it, sir, please?
When we went, this was 2 years ago. I went to the Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky, and I did a lot of exploring there. I feel like something followed me home from there. And I think it was just a dark spirit. For months after we got back, I'd go, because I'm a night owl. I stay up late writing. I would go to let my dog out in the backyard, and there were certain nights that he would not leave the porch light. He would do his business and run right back in the house. Most nights he would just run around, because we have a big yard. He'd run all over the yard and act like an idiot and be out there for 20 minutes. But then there'd be other nights where he would just not even leave the porch light, just do what he needed to do and get back in the house. And it wasn't cold, so I know he wasn't, because of the weather. And the property line at the back of my fence row, there's a house back there, but at the time it was unoccupied, and there's a big bush that's grown over the fence. And I would feel like there was something watching me from that bush. I'd gone out there a couple of times and never found anything, never saw any tracks. But that, again, the house behind me was behind us. It was unoccupied at the time. And I kept getting this weird feeling out there. And a friend of mine who is Navajo, his name's Wes, he contacted me. He said, "Hey, I had a dream about you." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "I think something's attached itself to you. I've got a bad feeling." So he talked me through what I needed to do, and then we performed a blessing way, and it hasn't been back. But it was pretty weird for about 2-3 months.
Ooh. So what are your thoughts on the Land Between the Lakes, like the original story?
I can't say for a fact that story is 100% accurate. I can't, because there's really no way to verify the story. What I can tell you, from my own personal experience in Land Between the Lakes, is that is one of the creepiest places I've ever been. I've spent most of my life in and out of the woods. I have never found a place more off-putting than Land Between the Lakes. It's creepy. I spent a whole week in the northern end of LBL. Never saw a single animal, not even roadkill. Where we were staying was just outside of LBL, and there were all kinds of animals that were walking around our campground and stuff. But once you got into the park, nothing. And it was just kind of a heavy feeling the whole time I was there. I spent quite a bit of time running around over there by myself, which in retrospect probably wasn't the brightest thing I've ever done. But then I'm hooked up with Nick Valente, and we spent several days pretty much traveling all over the north end of LBL.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. Have you got anything to add, Nicole?
I was just reading through some of the comments, kind of about, a lot of people are talking about the United States government is brutal to people that speak up, and the U.S. is much more open than the U.K. I'm not sure, about that. I know there's still a lot of stigma about everything.
I don't know if they're so much open about it, or they're just getting less antagonistic about it. There are still people that are being told you didn't see what you saw. You need to keep your mouth shut. But we're also seeing what I like to refer to as soft disclosures. We're seeing a lot more national parks where trailheads are marked with possible Bigfoot sightings. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources, they released a 5-part video on what to do if you encounter a Bigfoot, and this is the state Natural Resources Department for Ohio. And when I first heard they did it, I thought, well, it's going to be tongue in cheek, it's going to be done as a joke, and it's not. Yeah. It's a pretty legit safety video. There are places that are now passing protective laws, except for the state of Oklahoma. They went the other direction. They put out a $3 million bounty on one captured alive. But there are states that are putting legislation in place to protect Bigfoot and Bigfoot-like creatures. So I think while they're not willing to admit these things exist, they're very slowly releasing things, kind of like they did with the UFOs. Little by little, they're just letting bits of information slip.
Yeah. So do you think? So I was just going to say, do you think they're doing it because there has been that many sightings that they're kind of thinking, look, there's got to be something to this, so we kind of need to do something about it, even if it's just a little thing.
I think the issue is we've got enough credible people coming forward now with sightings that they can't just dismiss everybody. Back when it was the old joke about the guy in bibbed overalls and 4 teeth saying, "I saw Bigfoot and he stole my chickens." Those were pretty easy to go, "Oh yeah, that guy was just that guy was sampling the local moonshine." But when you've got judges and lawyers and cops and professional people from all walks of life coming forward and saying, this is what I saw and it terrified me, it's a little tougher to ignore that.
Yeah, for sure. Why do you think that it is that no one has come forward with, a body of any of these cryptids, even with the bounty like that on it? I
think they have. I think they've tried it numerous times, and I think every time they're shut down. If you look at examples across the United States of giant skeletons that were found, those have been found numerous times, and either it gets shut down by the local government and they're not allowed to dig there anymore, or the Smithsonian steps in and the skeletons disappear.
Yeah,
there's literally hundreds of documented cases of that where the skeletons just disappeared, and the Smithsonian has said, well, no, we don't know anything about it.
But you find that as well when people find like supposed DNA from these cryptids, they send it off to have it analyzed and tested, and then they don't hear anything back. They get in touch with wherever they sent it to, and like, we don't know what you're talking about.
I think there's a certain amount of pressure that's being applied by government and even civilian agencies on people that do these genetic testings. So I think even the results that you get are suspect, because you don't know unless you're there watching them perform every test.
No.
And even then, as a layman, I wouldn't understand what I was watching. I would know, okay, he's doing a DNA test, but I have no idea what he's looking at. You've got to trust that they're giving you the true data. And if they're a lab that's government funded, they're going to give the data that they're told to give.
Yeah.
There was one program, and I can't remember what it was, but they found some hair from what they think was a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. They sent it off, and it came back as that it was in an ape family. But then that was it. You never heard anything about it afterwards.
Well, there have been dogman samples sent in where it came back as unknown canine. In this day and age, when we've got genetic databases of every breed of dog, how is it an unknown canine?
Yeah, you can send your mutt's DNA in for testing. They can tell you a breakdown of every breed,
right,
that it is.
Yeah. And at that point, if you can find out your dog is part Labrador, part Great Dane, part Pyrenees, but you send in a hair sample and they're like, nope, some kind of canine, we don't know. You're like, okay, what's going on here? What are you not telling me?
Yeah, but I suppose in a way that at least they're telling you they don't know what it's from. Mm-hmm. They can tell you the type of animal or creature that it's from, but they can't give you a definite answer.
And those are the ones that I really find the most suspect, because
Yeah.
they are capable of telling you what it is, but they give you this vague answer. And
Yeah.
it's like, we got to give them an answer, but we're not going to give them the whole answer. And my
Yeah.
point is, they should just say, well, this just came back as a collie. And
Yeah.
at that point you've got, okay, it was a collie, okay. But when they say unknown canine, they're really just making the mystery deeper.
Oh yeah, that just makes the rabbit hole, like you said, that just opens the rabbit hole even more.
Right.
So
I
you just
think when you
keep
get
going.
something like that, they'd want to come in and like blanket the area, look for all kinds of evidence, because maybe it's a new species that science just hasn't discovered yet. But
Right.
instead they go the opposite way and they just shut it all down.
Well, nothing is more resistant to change than modern science. They for whatever reason, they've kind of lost track that science is to be challenged. Science is always supposed to be challenged, because what we thought we knew 100 years ago wouldn't hold water today. But modern science seems to think they've got all the answers, and anything that challenges that, they're like, nope, can't possibly be real. We can't do that. No.
But do you not think though that then they're being told, look, they actually know what all this stuff is, and they know the truth about what's going on, but they're kind of like, look, just you need to tell them it's this, and then that's it. Don't go any further than that. Like these whistleblowers, I just think this is what you say. You don't mention anything else, and that's it. I think it's the same sort of thing with the release of information on DNA or whatever that's been found.
I firmly believe that the government has known about cryptids for a very long time.
Yeah.
Dating back at more than 100 years. I think they've known about it for so long that they've kept it quiet. And I think part of it was out of public safety, because they were afraid people would panic. And part of it was just trying to keep people from going out and trying to kill these things, because there will be someone that'll try it. I'm not going to do it. I would never advocate shooting one of these things. Yes, I've grown up hunting. I've hunted just about anything you can hunt in North America, but I wouldn't want to go after one of these things, because if they are, it'd be like shooting a dolphin. I mean, if they're sentient, that's murder. Yeah. I mean, why would you want to do that? And then at times, and I do go armed. When I go out in the woods, I do go armed because I intend to come home again. But I'm only going to shoot one in self-defense.
Yeah, you're not going out to hunt one with your intent to go out and try and kill this thing. You go out armed in case something happens. Right. Not necessarily being a cryptid. It could be some weirdos knocking about in. You don't know who's about whenever you go to any of these places.
Or
what I tell people all the time is there are things in the woods that'll kill you that have nothing to do with cryptids. And we've got mountain lions, bears, wolves, coyotes, snakes. There's all kinds of animals that can and will kill you. Not to mention what I refer to as the greater North American meth head. They'll you stumble upon a illegal marijuana grow or a meth lab in the woods, you're going to get shot. It's just that's going to happen.
No.
So is that how you see disclosure of cryptids going? You think that a lot of people would go out and try to hunt one down?
I guarantee you there'd be somebody would try to go hunt one down to bring it in. And again, I don't want to be that guy. I think there's enough anecdotal and DNA evidence to at least put the subject open to debate. There should be enough already evidence collected where scientists will at least go, okay, there's a possibility there's something out there. I don't think we need a body to prove they exist. I think we're kind of beyond that. 100 years ago when we didn't have DNA testing, I can see they might have needed a body. Yeah. But today, well, if they had a blood sample or even a scat sample or a hair sample, you can get mitochondrial DNA from, that should be enough to prove the species.
Yeah. But obviously you'll have heard of this, that it's believed that bodies have been taken, they have been shot and killed, and they've been taken to these labs, whether it's government or independent ones. So I believe that that's true, and whether it happened lately or years ago, I don't know. Regardless of that, but they have had or will have bodies of these different types of creatures and cryptids, so that they must know what's going on and where they're coming from and why it's happening.
I think that, like I said, I think they've known about them for a long time. There are people that have asked me, "Do you think Dogman or Bigfoot was created in a lab?" I don't. Their sightings go back way beyond our technology level to create something like that. Back before there were labs. Some of these sightings go back, hundreds of years. However, having said that, if there's something like that our government can get their hands on, they're not above experimenting on it to try to make it into a weapon. I just don't trust the government to be forthcoming about stuff like that. If they could find a werewolf or a dog man and weaponize it, they're gonna.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we're talking about, things going back hundreds of years. What do you think the lifespan of some of these creatures are? Do you think it's, comparable to an average human lifespan? Or I've heard some theories that they can live hundreds and hundreds of years.
I just from a layman's guess point, I'm no biologist. I don't claim to be, but just from a layman's guess point, I would guess a Bigfoot's lifespan is probably somewhere comparable to humans and great apes. I would say it would be somewhere in those lines. Maybe an outlier might live 70, 80 years, but 40 to 50 years would probably seem to be the maximum lifespan. I mean, look at human lifespan back before medical technology advanced. 200 years ago, I mean, a guy in his 40s or 50s was considered an elder statesman. They just, people didn't live that long. It was rare for people to live, 60, 70, 80 years. But it's lifespans have increased because of medical technology, but these things don't have access to that. So I would say probably the best guess would be comparable to a mountain gorilla.
Cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
But Dogman being a canid, it's just anybody's guess. What does it have a more human lifespan? Does it age like a dog? That would be tough to guess on that one. Without we couldn't know for sure without one to study.
Cheers. Another question. It's not a trick question, but because it's something I want to tell you at the end of it, someone's just put it in the chat. What about prehistoric creatures? What's your take on these?
What, like dinosaurs, things like that?
Yeah, that still exist.
Like the people seeing pterodactyls and taking pictures of them in modern day?
Well, there have been pterodactyl-like sightings in what they call the Thunderbird, but the description is very pterodactyl-like down around the Four Corners area of New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. Lots of sightings. There's also sightings of pterodactyl-like creatures in Papua New Guinea. And then, of course, you've got what they call the Mekele Mbembe in the Congo, which is basically a small brachiosaur, small brontosaur. So I think there's some of these things probably are able to exist in some of the more rugged climates, but I don't think they're common. They're probably on their way out. Probably a very endangered species. I can't imagine there would be a great number of them. They've even hoped the government even hoped they would just die out, and then they wouldn't be a problem anymore. But there are a lot of sightings of, even like velociraptor-like creatures in the jungles. So I'd say it's not outside the realm of possibility. I would never say it's impossible because we just don't know. I mean, look how much unexplored wilderness is left out there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I have actually seen a pterodactyl. 100%. Really?
That's awesome.
And this was 50 miles north of London. So I was out in the back. I'll just say, I've told this story a million times and everyone's going to get fed up in the chat, but tough. But so I was out, it was about 10, 11 o'clock at night, middle of summer. I was out in the back garden and I was sky watching because I used to go out and I'd pick a point in the sky, set the telescope up, just watch, and then you'd see some of the stars start dancing about. You wouldn't ever see what they actually were. It just looked like stars, like moving around in the sky. Anyway, I'd put everything back and I was turning around to go back to the house. I just caught somewhere in the corner of my arm on the right hand side, and I'm like, oh my God. I had my phone in my hand because I'd been taking pictures of the stars and that, and I watched as this thing just glided across the sky, didn't flap its wings, didn't fly off course, didn't move, didn't make any noise. And I watched it, just fly across the rooftops until it was out of sight. And I've kept it on here. Obviously, these are CGI pictures; they're not actual photos. But I kind of seen it from this angle. I didn't see the head, but I could see the legs, the tail, the wings. But the wings weren't the same as they are on that one. They were more like this.
But that's a pretty
More
distinct
like bat wings. And it was, like I said, it was a clear night, and this was a really tan, dark brown, and it just went straight across. I'd say it was, the wingspan was roughly about, I'd say about 16 foot, and beak to tail was, I'd say, about 24 foot. It was big.
That's massive.
Yeah.
That's bigger than most birds. That would be.
And I'm watching it, and I'm like, I've just seen the dragon. Do you know when you're trying to comprehend what you've just been looking at? So I'm running the house, I've gone looking, and I'm looking, I couldn't find it. And then a couple of years ago, them pictures popped up on Facebook, and I'm like, I just dropped onto the sofa, I just sat down, I'm like, oh my God, that is what I've seen. And then I was doing one of these podcasts a couple of months ago, and a guy got in contact with me, and he was from the same part of the UK, the same town as where I was from. And he'd said him and his girlfriend were out, they parked up and was watching the sunset because it was a nice evening and that. It was about 8 o'clock at night, so he said it was summer because the sun was only just starting to set. And he seen this flapping in the distance. And he said he thought it was a bird that was closer, but when he focused on it, it was a lot further away and a lot bigger. And he said it looked like a pterodactyl. And the way where it was flying, the same direction and the same point, was roughly where I'd seen mine, except he was looking at it from, say, the west, and I'm looking at it from. He's looking at it from the east, and I'm looking at it from the west. It was flying south to north, and it was on the same kind of flight path.
Well, if more than one person saw it, you've definitely got a confirmation of something being there. I wonder if something like that would show up on radar.
Yeah, but he didn't see it at the same time. Like I said, I seen it about 11 o'clock at night, but it was roughly around. I'd say within the same year that I'd seen it. So I spoke to a few people about it once I realised what it was, and then kind of clarified it all. And I thought it's got to be a time slip or something. It can't, because there's been no sightings, or no one that I know of has mentioned about seeing anything like that around there. And like I said, it wasn't until this guy contacted me a couple of months ago because he'd watched one of the videos that I'd done, and he said he'd seen same sort of thing in the same area, except that was flapping its wings, whereas mine was just, it must have got into a thermal drift and was just gliding through. But it just flew straight line till I couldn't see it anymore. Very amazing is what it was.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, but pretty mind blowing, really. I would have been freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, what the heck is that?
I just stood there just watching it, and someone said, "Did you not say anything?" I'm like, "No." What would you have said? If I'd shouted, imagine if I'd turned and seen me. I wouldn't be sat here now telling you about it. I'd be eating water.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Hey, you pterodactyl, come down here. What are you going to say?
Yeah. And one of my mates said, "Was it not a kite?" I watched it fly for about at least a mile. It's got to have been at least half a mile to a mile. If
Not only that,
kite, that was a big
an animal that big could carry off an adult human.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Things like that, you never think to pull out your camera. You're so in shock of what you're seeing.
My phone, it was in my hand like that as I'm just watching it, and didn't even consider, because the camera had been open because they'd been taking pictures and videos of the stars. Didn't even consider taking a photograph. It never entered my mind.
You hear that a lot with people who have experiences. You just don't think of it. You're just so in awe of what you're seeing.
Yep, definitely. Right, are we good for a break? because we've just gone over the hour mark.
Absolutely.
Is that all right? Right. So, going to do a break. We will be back. It's just over 3 minutes. There's a 10-second countdown at the end. So, if you need to go off, just when you hear that, you need to run back.
Okay.
All right, then. See you in 3.
eight, seven, six, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, welcome back. We are ready to carry on with your questions. Nicole, have you got anything to ask before we go to viewers' questions?
Well, I was thinking before, actually, when you were talking about chasing that shadow creature kind of through the empty building. So what would you say that a shadow creature or shadow person was?
You know, I've actually been asked that question before. I don't know if it's like like a spirit or perhaps something demonic. I don't know what their origin is, because when I saw it, it looked in humanoid form, but it was completely black. And it stayed pretty much in that same form the whole time I was chasing it. I would just get glimpses of it ducking between equipment, and I kept, gradually pushing it farther and farther in one direction, because there's only so many places it could go on the floor. But by the time I got it to the elevator, the corners where the elevators were, I had already seen it multiple times, so I could tell it was a humanoid. I just, as for what its origin is, I couldn't guess. Hospitals tend to attract a lot of dark things because there's so much death there. So I wouldn't rule anything out. It could have been something demonic. It could have just been the lingering spirit of somebody that passed. It is hard to say, but it was definitely weird.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, right. I'll do another question then. So, this is from Joe again. Oh, this is a good question. I like these ones. DA. Oh, does DA have a favorite horror film? Of course he does.
Ooh, oh, I love horror films. I would probably have to say either American Werewolf in London or The Howling.
No,
So very, very
I'd
close
say-
between those two.
Yeah, American Werewolf in London has got to be the best horror movie,
Oh, it is fantastic.
movie ever. I think I was 5 when I watched that, and
I was pretty
I've
young
not
first time I
been-
saw
Not
it.
been the same since. Nicole, have you got one?
I think it has to be something more recent. Like I like Paranormal Activity just
Yeah.
because of the whole phenomena that it made, where people thought it was real and they didn't know if it was a documentary, and that really freaked people out for a while. So I kind of like the psychology behind that.
Have you seen a series? I believe it's on Netflix, but I can't remember exactly which streaming service. It's called The Blackwell Ghost.
No.
Ghost.
Those
No,
are very good.
I've marked that to watch. it.
If that was done as just like a paranormal thing, much like the paranormal witness. If it was done something like that, it's very compelling. But if that footage is real, it's terrifying. They never say.
Hmm.
Oh, that's a good
It's
I'll
a
watch that just before I go
multi-part
to bed
series called The
tonight,
Blackwell Ghost, and it is terrifying.
Yeah.
DA, are all your books fiction?
Yes, I haven't done any nonfiction books, but I have been thinking about doing some in that vein. I want to do an actual not just sighting database, but lore about the Ozarks Howler. I thought about doing one. I've actually talked about doing one with an artist friend of mine named Ryan of different types of Bigfoot from around the world, just kind of like a almost like a coffee table book where you can flip through like the orang pin deck and then have a drawing and a description and that kind of thing, kind of like a encyclopedia Sasquatchica or something like that.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting to see with all your experiences, you put together something based on what you've really done and experienced. I'd read it.
That's a good enough reason to do it right there. If somebody wants to read it, then at some point I'll get it added to the list. I've got a lot of writing projects on the fire, but I'm always working on new stuff.
30 books, right?
I've got plans already outlined, set out for the next 50.
Oh wow!
Wow.
I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon. If as the phrase goes, if the good Lord's willing.
Yeah, definitely. Next question, it's only because you was talking about Ozark. Jojo's asking, do you think the Ozark Howler is real?
I do. I think it is based on a real creature. I don't think I think the only reason it's technically a cryptid is because it's one of those animals that science just hasn't categorized. There's been too many sightings in this area. I've talked to people who've heard it. There was some trail cam footage captured near Branson, Missouri, of one. So I think it's a very real creature. It was real enough that there was a secret society founded to protect it, and two former U.S. presidents have been members of this society.
Wow.
Can you say which ones?
Teddy Roosevelt, and I believe the second one was Woodrow Wilson.
Okay, cheers. Thank you. So what do you think it is then, the Howler?
I think it's like an undocumented type of bear. Somewhere because the descriptions describe it as being like canine, but like the size of a bear. The descriptions seem to vary because they say it has horns, which is not uncommon for animals to just have horns. It could just be a genetic fluke. But I think there's enough here with the Ozarks Howler to say that this legend's based on something. People didn't just pull this one out of a hat to scare children around a campfire. There's enough to it. And I've heard weird sounds out in the Mark Twain. I've heard something that was kind of like a cross between a baying of a hound and the screaming of a woman. in the distance out in the Mark Twain. It was far enough away I couldn't record it. You could barely even hear anything on the recording. But I've heard strange calls out in the Mark Twain National Forest that are, it's very tough to attribute that to any other animal. And I've heard mountain lions scream up close. I've heard plenty of wolves howl. I know what the animals around here sound like, and this wasn't one of them.
No. Are you saying about the growing horns? Because all that is keratin. Is it keratin or keratin? Mm-hmm. It's just hair follicles, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's been documented cases of humans growing horns.
Oh, yeah. Cats and all sorts. So
it's like a genetic mutation.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's what the Ozarks howler is. I think it's a mutation off of a known animal, but it's changed enough that people don't know what it is.
Yeah. So do you think it's possible then because someone just put sounds like a crossbreed, Collins just put up. I'm not going to try and pronounce his surname. I got it wrong the other day. Do you think it's possible that these cryptids can crossbread? If they're out in the wilderness on their own, and they're not getting any trying to make it sound right. It's going to sound wrong, whichever way I say it. But they're not getting interference from humans, so they're just left to do whatever they do. If there's nothing and no one else there, they end up crossbreeding.
I would say any crossbreeding that could be done would have to be from something that's genetically compatible. Kind of like what do we share? We share like 97% of our DNA with a chimp, but we can't crossbreed with a chimp. Not that I think we should try or anything. I think that's pretty bizarre, but we're not genetically compatible. So I would say whatever they're trying to crossbreed is going to have to be very close. So if some of the Native American stories are true of them carrying off Native women to breed with, if those stories are true, then they're very, very close. That a Bigfoot is very close to us genetically.
Yeah, but you must have heard about I can't remember the guy's name. A bloke, he was out camping and a Bigfoot picked him and took him. And it took him down. He went up a cliff, down a cliff to this cave. And he was there for what he thinks is 3 or 4 days.
The Albert Ostman story.
And he was under the impression that they wanted him to breed with this female Bigfoot. He was in his sleeping bag when they picked him up and took him. And he managed to escape. Can't remember the full story about it. So it's not just the females that they're taking male humans as well.
Mm-hmm. I think if it comes down to preserving their population line, they're going to do what they have to do. They're not bound by our morals. If they've got to carry somebody off, they will. It's what we would consider barbaric and even rape. To these things would just be survival. Is there really such a thing as consensual between two animals?
Oh, is
that a concept that you understand?
Isn't it? Really?
Right. The urge to continue its genetic line would be all encompassing, especially if they were, they're very limited in their choices of mates.
Yeah. Well, if you look at how the male lion acts when he's looking for a mate, it's very, very similar to what you've just been saying. And they're in a pack.
Mm-hmm.
They're in its own. That's a member of its own pack as well. So it's I think it's across the board. I suppose the animal kingdom. So
animals are going to try to continue their species. It's just going to happen.
Yep. No.
So speaking of species that are closely related, D.A, what are your thoughts on the Yeti versus Sasquatch versus Bigfoot? Do you think they're all the same thing? Do you think they're like cousins?
I think they're regional variances. I think they're very much similar, if not the same creature, but they've just adapted to their particular environment. A great example is look at the black bear, the North American black bear. An East Coast black bear and a West Coast black bear, while they are both black bears, look very different. You can tell by the snout structure and the shape of their ears; they're very different. You take a coastal brown bear in Alaska with one of the interior brown bears, both very different. They're the same species, but because of adaptations of where they live, there are changes. So I think that these different types of Yeti slash Bigfoot slash Sasquatch type creatures, I think they're all not, if not identical, then at least in the same family tree, with regional differences and adaptations to where they're from.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. So, next question is, why do you think we don't see any, not us personally, but any, I suppose, dead Bigfoot or dogmen? What do you think happens there?
I think they're smart enough to know to bury their dead,
Yeah.
or at least hide them. Well, and if I've been in the woods, like I said, I've been in and out of the woods my entire life, and I've never seen the skeleton of a bear. I mean, I've never stumbled
Right.
upon, and I know they're out there. A lot of animals, when they get near the end of their life, will go someplace to die where
Yeah.
they're not going to be disturbed. You know, they might be crawling back into a cave. They might be crawling way back under brush where they can't get, something can't get to them. But their instinct is to get someplace where they can die in peace. So I think that that's a lot to do with it, and I think they're also smart enough to know that if they keep leaving their bodies laying around, that it's going to keep attracting the hairless apes with the bang sticks to come out and look for these things. So I think I think they're smart enough to know that, you know, finding their bodies laying around is not good for them.
No.
I think part of it is that they're smart enough to bury or hide their dead, and part of it is that they just don't stay somewhere where they can die in public. It would take a sudden death, like someone getting hit by a semi or something, for there to be a body. But I think when much like an elephant or a bear, when it gets close to time to death, I think they find a place to go.
They know where to go, don't they?
Right.
Yeah. Have you heard of many accounts of people hitting them with a vehicle and killing them or injuring them?
I've heard of numerous stories of people clipping one on a highway. I've never heard of a story of one being killed, although I did hear a story of a man who dressed in a ghillie suit and was trying to scare people, to make people think he was Bigfoot. And I believe this was up in Wyoming. He was like standing on the edge of the highway trying to scare traffic, making them think he was Bigfoot, and he stepped out in front of the wrong car and they smoked him. So I have heard of a person being killed while dressed as Bigfoot, but I haven't heard of any Bigfoot being killed. I did hear of one supposedly killed was hit by a train in the late 1800s.
Oh.
And supposedly there was a body from that.
Mm-hmm. It was carried around as part of a sideshow and then disappeared.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people like hitting dogmen or werewolves or whatever you want to call them, but then they get up and move off. Whether they get up and whether they're injured or not, the person's been too afraid to go back to have a look. They can just see it in the rear view mirror, or they've pulled up further down the road and they can see movement going on. I've heard that, but never anything with the Bigfoot.
Yeah, I think if I were to hit a werewolf or even a Bigfoot, I would probably stop at a safe point to check and see how much damage I did to my car, but I'm not going back. No. Because, you know, an animal like that, when wounded and pissed off that it just got hit, probably not going to be a very friendly thing to try to communicate with.
Yeah,
and it's going to remember who you are.
Oh yeah,
like
not fondly.
And blood and things like that on their car after they've supposedly hit one, but
nothing on there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, it falls back to what we were saying about sending it to labs. Government-sponsored labs are going to say what they're told to say about it, and then a lot of times these samples just disappear.
Yeah. So what's your take then on Bigfoot not being, suppose I don't like saying, but flesh and blood, but being more supernatural?
Yeah, I would not rule anything out. We don't know enough about these creatures. And one thing we always tell people on our show is one thing that everybody needs to remember is there are no experts in this field.
No.
Anybody that claims to be an expert in this is selling you something. There are no experts. I'm not an expert. I've got a number of years of experience investigating, and I've got a lot of opinions on it, but without scientific proof to back it up. That's all it is. It's all guesses, hypothesis, and opinion. So you can take my opinion with a grain of salt. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, because I could be 100% wrong. But Yeah, I definitely think that these things are more flesh and blood. And that is because I have never experienced anything supernatural along with one. I'm not
Right.
saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that the people that have had these encounters are making it up. I'm not saying that in any way or shape or form. I'm just saying it hasn't been in my experience.
Yeah. Nicole?
A lot of things in this field, like everything is so theoretical. But
Right.
when you think about it, evolution is still a theory. It's just
Mhm.
a widely accepted theory.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what do you think it would take for Bigfoot or Dogman to be as widely accepted?
It's going to take some sort of taxonomy. It's going to somebody's going to have to classify it. And there have been attempts to do it. Some of the genetic research done by Dr. Melba Ketchum, but a lot of times the government will go out of their way to discredit anything like that. When it's going to take a lot more coming forward, a lot more people coming forward than what have, and there's going to need to be credible sources, not just Joe Sixpack running around the swamp looking for a monkey. It's gonna take scientific sources like Dr. Jane Goodall. She said she believes the possibility of a North American ape. So
Yeah.
to me, that's a huge bit of credibility right there. When Dr. Jane Goodall is saying, I think these things could possibly exist, but it's going to take a lot more people coming forward with relevant experience and knowledge. Every one Dr. Jane Goodall is worth 1,000 guys like me. I mean, I can collect evidence and stories and shout it from the rooftops, but one well-known scientist is going to be somebody people will listen to.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. We need more
Yeah.
credible people doing the work out there.
And I
Yeah,
think
so-
that will happen eventually.
Yeah, definitely. How often do your theories change?
My theories are constantly changing.
Every day.
From well, not necessarily every day, but
Yeah.
we as we explore new theories, we explore new ideas, we talk to different people, we collect evidence. We will adapt our theories based on what we've observed and what we've collected. One of the things that we've been working on, Robbie, Doc, Steve, and I, and my son Noah, is the possibility that tree knocks might be some form of echolocation, that Bigfoot is at least partially subterranean. And it fits with a lot of the sightings, especially along the Mammoth Cave area. So
Yeah.
we think that not only are they part of like an echolocation system. We also believe that not all of them are made with by grabbing a chunk of wood and knocking it on a tree. We think some of them are
Yeah.
made with their mouth. They're popping their tongues.
Ah. Yeah, someone else said that to me the other week, that these tree knocks are not necessarily wood on wood.
Right.
Because you do the mimicking. Could it be that the tongue can't speak, tongue clicking?
I can pop my tongue really loud. I do it in the woods all the time, just to see if I get a reaction. But I have a noise filter on my microphone, and it cuts it out. You can't even hardly hear it, unfortunately. So I won't try to make the noise here, because the noise filter will shut it out completely.
Right, okay.
Once you
Well,
hit
I
a certain
suppose-
decibel, it just blocks it out.
Yeah, but I suppose if they're kind of using infrasound as well, and you've got the right acoustics out in the forest and that, then I suppose the sound's going to change a little bit anyway, and possibly sound
Right.
like a wood knock.
And I'm not saying that the tongue pop is the only solution. I think in a lot of these cases, there's more than one solution. Some of it could be wood on wood, where they're hitting a tree branch against a tree. Some of it could be them slapping their chest. Some of it could be clapping their hands or hitting the ground. So I think there's a lot of possibilities, but without firsthand physical observation, we're not going to know for sure. But in a lot of these cases, I think that there isn't just one right answer.
No. So what do you think about? Sorry, Nicole, I know you want to speak. I just quickly, because I know I will forget.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, and then someone, I think it was BMR Rob or Barry Littleton, started talking about it. with the tree knocks, maybe it's not a sign to communicate, but they mentioned about these trees being some sort of portal to travel around, and that's why when you see them go behind a tree and then they've gone, what if they're knocking on these trees to try and find out what frequency these trees are giving off to see if it can be used as some sort of portal for them to travel to wherever it is they want to go?
Yeah, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility, but I think it's far more likely that these things are just very adapted to what they call adaptive camouflage. In the Paul Freeman footage, there is a scene where Paul is filming a large adult black colored Sasquatch, and it stops in front of a tree and disappears. I don't think it went through a portal. I don't think it cloaked. I think that, and a lot of researchers, including Doug Hychek from the Monster Quest, agree with me. A lot of researchers are finding Bigfoot hairs that have a clear hair shaft, much like a polar bear's. And a clear hair shaft, much like fiber optics, will pick up and gather the light around it. So I think these things have a natural blending ability. I don't think it's,
like mirrors, don't they? They reflect the light. Yeah.
Right. I think that this thing stopped in front of the tree and absorbed the color of the light around it. And when it stopped moving, it just blended perfectly in. But as Freeman got closer and it realized he was still coming, it started moving again. So it reappeared in the exact same spot. MK Davis did a breakdown on that video, and it's pretty fantastic to watch. But I think it's just adaptive camouflage. And again, I'm not claiming to be the expert. I'm not claiming to have all the answers. That's just what I think it is. I think it makes much more logical sense than these things have the ability to transfer dimensions or go through portals. Because if they could, if there's even a small grain of truth to them preying on humans in any capacity, then they would be unstoppable.
Yeah.
If they were able to go through portals and they preyed on us in any capacity at all, they would be completely unstoppable. There'd be nothing we could do. They could walk into your living room, grab you, and disappear.
Yeah, gone.
So I won't say it's impossible. I would just say it's far more likely that there is a natural explanation. Like, for example, the ancient Vikings used to believe that the northern lights was the light reflected off the Bifrost and gleaming off the Valkyrie's armor. Well, we know what the northern lights are now, but a primitive society that doesn't understand it is going to try to look for an explanation on what these lights in the sky are. Just because we don't understand it doesn't necessarily mean it's magic.
Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you got...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, have you got anything that you want to ask before we carry on?
Ask if you've ever come across any structures or anything that seem to be made by a cryptid while you're out in the woods. I know there are theories that they bend trees and they make shelters.
Mm-hmm. I found stick formations and tree formations. I found rock stacks. Those are pretty ubiquitous, but it's impossible to say they weren't made by a person. It's not impossible that a person stacked rocks near a riverbank and was walked off and left it. So without seeing them, the creatures actually making them, we can't say for certain that they're the ones doing it. However, having said that, I've talked to a lot of researchers throughout the Midwest, and we're starting to notice that some of the tree structures where you're finding tree branches that are bent over are in close proximity to plants with natural remedies. The same plants that Native Americans used for herbal treatments and medicines. For example, spruce bark. Spruce bark, when chewed, is a natural pain reliever.
So you think they could be more spot where these herbs are?
Yeah, they're quote unquote pharmacy. Because in some of these places where we found these bins, we found the bark stripped off of spruce trees 8 to 12 feet off the ground, and that's not a deer.
No.
And a human would have to be pretty determined to get up there and do that,
and need a ladder.
Yep, and not leave a mark, carry a ladder in and out of the forest like
right.
That.
And why would a human strip spruce bark as a pain reliever when you can just pop down to the shop and pick up some ibuprofen?
Exactly. And he wants to carry ladders, and they're not even like it's a couple of 100 yards into the forest. This is like miles deep into the
Sometimes,
forest.
yes.
So he's going to go to all that trouble to come back.
Just not
Yeah.
logical.
And it's not even like it's only like one or two, isn't it? It's not like it's a whole area. It's just a bit off it, like a couple of the trees.
Yeah, they're not killing the trees. They're taking just enough to where they can use it and still
Just
leave the
even-
tree to replenish. Another thing we've noticed is a lot of areas where these bins are, we're finding where cedar bark and cedar saplings have been uprooted and used for bedding. Cedar, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but cedar is a natural bug repellent. It's the perfect thing to put. Like, if you're going to be spending any time in the woods, you're going to be doing primitive camping, get cedar boughs and put them. Make your bedding out of it. Then put your sleeping bag off on top of that. Bugs won't touch you. Cedar is a natural bug repellent, and we're finding in a lot of these areas where these markers are that we're seeing a lot of cedar has been used.
No, that's good to know. I'm just going to make a point. Simon and Sober, next time you go out to Cannock Chase, take some cedar trees with you. We're going to need it so we don't get bit. So what about these trees that are being uprooted and put back in upside down with the roots at the top?
I've had people try to tell me, "Oh, that's just practical jokes being pulled by loggers." And I'm sure in some cases that the loggers got bored and did something like that. But some of these trees would require heavy equipment to uproot and jab back in the ground, and they're in areas where there's no way you could have gotten heavy equipment in there. Places where there are no roads. They're finding them they found them here in the Mark Twain National Forest out in the deep woods, and they're nowhere even near a fire road, so there's no way a logger did it. They're finding them Port Chatham, Alaska, the town that was abandoned because of Bigfoot attacks. They're finding them there, and there are no roads there. There's no way they got heavy equipment up there. So they're finding them in places that it's just not easy for them to explain.
Yeah, but it's not even like it's just a few inches or so. It's like 3, 4, even 5 feet into the ground. I know
it's
when the
jammed in
roots are
deep.
being ripped out, there's going to be a bit of a trench there, but you've still got to pull a big tree out the ground, turn it over, and put it back in.
Exactly. I think those are territorial markers.
Yeah. So like a boundary then.
Right.
Like perimeter, sorry.
Have you ever left gifts out for like Bigfoot or Dogman to see if you can communicate with them?
I have not. I think it's a bad idea. Number one, I hear stories of people leaving food out, and I know from personal experience here in Missouri and people that I know, there are lots of people who feed bears off the deck of their house, and that goes badly. It not only is it illegal, it goes badly. If you don't leave food out and you're not home, that bear will crush its way into your house and destroy your kitchen or the house looking for whatever it wants to eat. It's a bad idea to feed wild animals because then they become dependent on it. And I'm not saying that just because you're leaving, Snickers bars or whatever out on a tree stump out in the middle of the woods that it's going to come back bad on you, but it might come back bad on somebody. If these things have gotten used to when humans come out, they always leave something to eat on that tree stump, and some guy that's hiking and knows nothing about that walks right by that tree stump, he might be the next target. Also, there's too many accounts of these things following people home. They're very intelligent. So, yeah, I definitely would not want to have any kind of potentially dangerous wild animal associate me with food.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of glad we live in the UK. The worst thing we've got is foxes or badgers.
Well, then you've got all the giant cat stories.
There's been a report, and this was from can't remember who her name or what she does, but she does like the equivalent to national parks in the US, and she confirmed that there's at least 300 wild big cats loose in the UK. So you do have them, but I think most of them are from like zoos that have shut down, private collections from. It was the 1970s where they changed the exotic pet states license, so you couldn't just bring anything into the country. Yeah, it is like so much more red tape and money that you had to go through to keep them. And I think it was just easier for someone just to open the back door and go, off you go.
Yeah.
And pay thousands of pounds and go through weeks, months of paperwork just to keep one cat. So,
That's
but
like
I'm actually going out. Sorry, there's a place called Luton, just north of London. The actual place is it's called the Chilterns. It's just like hills and like a couple of valleys and that. And there's been a lot of big cat sightings around there. But it is right next to a place called Whipsnade Zoo. So whether that's an attraction to them, because that's like a outdoor safari.
Mhm.
We obviously drive around. They're not all enclosed as such. They're more free roaming. So it's not too far from there. Now, I've been up there a few times and days out with the missus and the kids and that, but we was going to go up and do a sky watch. So I think what we're going to do when we do the sky watch is kind of do a big cat watch as well at the same time. So if anything comes from that, I'll let you guys know anyway. And fingers crossed I don't get eaten by a panther.
Well, hopefully you get a lot of pictures.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. I think spring near springtime now. It's just a little bit too cold to be going sitting out in the middle of the night waiting for something. As we found out the other week. But yeah. So,
I think if I ever got the chance to come to the UK to do some investigating,
Yeah.
I think the thing that interests me the most, I would like to investigate the gray man of the Cairngorms, the Scottish Bigfoot.
I was going to say, is that the one in Scotland?
Mhm.
Have you spoke to Chris Meek from Scottish Paranormal Podcast?
I have
Do
not.
you know him?
No, I don't.
I will put you in touch with him. He does a lot of stuff up in Scotland. I can't remember exactly where he is. Yeah, the Grey Man. He's had accounts of what is known as the Silver Man, which is a similar sort of thing. I'll pass you his details on, and
Okay.
you might want
Yeah.
to have a chat with him.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. So I'll let him know, and yeah, we'll start out after the show anyway. But yeah,
Okay.
he's the go-to guy, I think, for Scotland out of everyone that I know. So it's all good. Right.
Awesome.
Next question. This is for me, but I'm gonna send it over to you guys as well. So this is from Richard Crooks. Andy, is there any new reports of Springfield Jack? No, I've not heard anything recently. This was, I think it was out around the same time as Jack the Ripper, but it was seen. Do you know of Springfield Jack?
A little bit.
So it was seen. The story that I'm trying to remember it was someone was not going around knocking on doors, and they ended up getting in contact with the police. The police turned up, and it was what looked like a man in a big hat and a big overcoat and that. And when he was approached, apprehended, he kind of just like jumped off, but he was doing leaps of like 10, 15, 20 foot. And he ended up jumping onto the roof of these houses and was gone. But he left like hoof mark prints. I'm sure it was early or late 1800s. I'm just guessing the actual time frame. But I know it was around like Jack the Ripper area, because they now think that it might have had something. There might have been a connection between the two. Don't know if that's been written off, but
I think if I saw somebody jump from the ground up to the roof of a building, I would definitely be like, "Oh, what the heck is that? That's not typical."
yeah. But what I got from that, other than the hoof prints, when I first heard this story, my thing was like immortals or vampires, that kind of vibe from it, and just the way that it was dressed at the time. And if it was connected to Jack the Ripper and with what he was doing, that'd be a bit more of a bigger connection with the vampiric side to it.
True.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's all, like you said before, it's just guesswork, isn't it? That's all. We weren't there. We didn't see it happen. So Speculation.
Yeah, from this happening, the less likely we are to know any concrete answers.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. Have you ever written about him? I just seen something in the chat, but it's gone now.
Yeah, I haven't. Again, it's not something I know a whole lot about. I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, who knows? I mean, you never know which direction things are going to take me. Since a lot of the Arthur Conan Doyle estate is now public domain, I'm
Right.
thinking of doing a Dark Frontiers Sherlock Holmes crossover where my character
Ooh.
Declan and his team wind up in England hunting something and end up having to work with Holmes. So I'm thinking about something like that. I've got to check in the legality of it because I don't want to get sued. But a Dark Frontiers Sherlock Holmes story might be in the works.
Right. Oh, cool.
That
I'll
sounds cool.
keep my eye out for that one. Still got a few more questions. This is perfect timing. So this is from Nickname. She's one of the mods. Has DA got any areas in the UK he wants to write about or case to use? If already so, which one? That's pretty good timing, now, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing something with the Gray Man story. I've thought about some of the big cat sightings as well, but I'm kind of exploring the folklore, looking for just the right connections. But I may save the Gray Man to do that Holmes crossover. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cheers. So just about 1835-ish was Springfield Jack. So yeah, beginning of the 1800s. So I was actually got it right. I normally get like 200 years out or something. So quite impressed with myself. Right. Next question. Oh, this is a good one because this is kind of like my vibe. This is from Jojo again. She's asking, does DA believe in inner Earth?
I believe in a version of the hollow Earth theory. I don't think the Earth itself is completely hollow,
No.
with a whole ecosystem inside. I think there are massive caverns underneath the surface because the outer shell of the Earth is massively thick, miles and miles thick. So there's all kinds of potential for massive caverns. For example, the Mammoth Cave system that they discovered in Tennessee and Kentucky, they now believe Mammoth Cave extends from Maine all the way down to New Mexico. So
wow,
over 1,000 miles of interconnected caverns. I think that the hollow Earth theory is something along those lines. I think they're massive cave systems that very well could contain civilizations.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I don't believe it's hollowed out and they've got towns and mountains and villages and all that kind of stuff. I think it's just more there are things that live under the Earth's surface, and then maybe that's what we see when we see these things. They come out.
We know from the depths of the ocean that bioluminescence is a thing. It's not only logical to think that it could exist in some of these caverns as well.
Yeah, make perfect sense, won't it? Yeah, because it's like these. So I was just going to say quickly, these tunnels in the UK that you can get right over to the other, right over to Eastern Europe without ever having to come up. So if you've got them, they're going to be everywhere, aren't they?
I would agree. Yeah, I think there's the potential for underground civilizations and vast interconnected caverns is very high. And I think that's why Bigfoot is so hard to find. Bigfoot and Dogman. I think a lot of times they're either using these as these caverns as a safe place to go, or they might just spend most of their time there and come up only to hunt. The thing people don't realize about these underground expeditions is it's not like if we were going to take a trip up into the mountains of here, say of the Rocky Mountains here in the United States. It's not like we can say, okay, I need a supply drop at these coordinates so we can continue the journey. You can't do that underground. You've got to go in and establish a base camp, and then you've got to bring in supplies to supply the base camp, and then you can begin to expand out from there. But each time you can only go so far because you've got to carry literally everything with you. So expeditions underground are far more difficult than above ground expeditions.
Yeah. Sorry, Nicole. What was you going to say?
I was just going to ask if either of you have heard of the hikers and backpackers finding like hatches or doors just out in the middle of the woods that go down into these crazy tunnel systems.
Oh no, I've not heard that. I
It
don't.
wouldn't surprise me.
recall.
There's got to be, not only if you're going to be below ground, you're going to have air shafts, and there's going to have to be access points. And of course, then you start getting into the conspiracy theories of deep underground military bases and continuity of government bunkers. There's more down there than we know. It's easy to hide something, under your feet because, how many of us actually go, deep delving into caves?
Very true.
Yeah. Not me, because I don't want to get trapped. And that's the only reason. I've been in caves and that, but I'll only go in so far that I know I can get back out.
Right.
Because that'd be I think that's one of my worst fears, is being trapped and never being able to get out again.
Yeah, I don't know how people do it when you see them like squeezing into these tight holes or just like down like through a waterfall. Like you don't know.
And then they've got to go under the water to then swim and come out the other end. It's like, you've got to get back yet. Why are you even doing that? That's definitely not for me.
I'm right there with you. No, thank you.
I'll go and look and I'll watch from this side, but I'm not going under and through. And
I'll go as far as I can turn around and walk back out.
Yeah. Feet on the ground all the way.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Next question is from Jojo. This is going back to Dogmen and Bigfoot. Does DA think that the governments are creating hybrids for real?
It would not surprise me at all.
I'm guessing she's talking about the books that you're writing as well. What you put in there.
It would not surprise me at all. We know during World War II that Joseph Stalin tried to breed an army of ape men as soldiers. Well, that's a historically documented fact. We know that Nazi scientists tried the same thing. They were trying to crossbreed humans with other animals. Joseph Mengele did some bizarre experiments on people. The thing is we don't know even today if any of those experiments were successful. We know the one that Stalin tried didn't work, but there had to have been others. And if these are secretly funded, quietly kept top secret projects that the government has gone into, we may never know. But I would say, yes, it's entirely possible. Not only have they tried it, I would say they've probably succeeded in many cases.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. Quick question before we got about 4 more left after this. The Vatican. Do you think that they're holding so much information that it will never, ever be released?
I don't think the Vatican will ever release what's down there. No. And I guarantee you we know there are miles of tunnels beneath the Vatican that contains the Vatican's personal archives. I would not be surprised if a good chunk of the Library of Alexandria is down there. Because at the time the library was
next.
At the time the library was destroyed, Julius Caesar was in Alexandria with his fleet. He could have easily packed up most of that library and taken it back to Rome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what I was going to say next. Like the Library of Alexandria, did it really all get burned, or did they take it for their own knowledge?
Exactly.
So it'd be a stupid trick to miss if they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. Especially how powerful the Romans were at that time. It's 3/4 of the world?
And with the knowledge that was collected, it would be stupid to only maintain one copy of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've definitely got them books and the knowledge and everything else. So, right. Sorry, I was just checking something in the chat. Have you anything to add to that, Nicole, before we go to the next question?
That I definitely agree with you there, because knowledge is power, and if they wanted, why wouldn't they make those?
Yeah, it'd be a stupid thing to do even back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So this is.
Sorry. The Vatican definitely knows more than they'll ever tell us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. This is from UFO Joe, going back to that shadow person creature that you're seeing. DA, did the shadow have any limbs and no? Oh, and knows why I'm asking.
Yeah, it just looked like a person. I thought I was legitimately chasing a person until I started getting closer. It the arms, legs, the whole 9 yards. I saw the full silhouette walk between two large air handling equipment, and yeah, I thought it was I thought it was a person, and I started chasing them in a direction I knew I was forcing them into an area they couldn't get out of, and then it was just gone. But yes, I was convinced that I was chasing a person at first.
Cool, thank you. Next question. It's from Joe again. He's asking, to DA, what's your take on previous civilizations?
I think a good chunk of lost technology was probably contained in the Library of Alexandria. For example, we know the Egyptians had the technology to make batteries. Why?
Yeah.
What did they use the batteries for? What did they need electricity for? But we know for a fact the Egyptians made batteries. So therefore, it's a no-brainer to say they had something that those batteries powered.
Yeah.
Whatever they used it for, who knows? But they were technologically advanced enough that they were using batteries. So what other technology have we been lied to? Was another theory that we kind of tossed around on the show one night is we thought that maybe all the great advances we've made over the last 100 years were due to alien influences. What if it's not alien at all? What if they're rediscovering some of these old technologies?
So do you then, going back to my last question, do you believe that then some of, not just the books, but some of this actual technology is kept in the Vatican?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't just believe there's books in there and it's written scripts and all that. I believe there's actual artifacts and
look at the description of the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant basically sounds like a massive generator.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's creating tremendous amounts of energy.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, I just wish that they'd be more open about what's really going on.
I agree. I would love to know some of these secrets that have been long kept from us.
Well, I don't even mean give us like the darkest secrets or anything like that. Just say like, yeah, we've got this. This is what it was used for. That's it. That's it. You don't need to know anything more. Just admit to what is being said and done.
Right.
You don't have to give us all the details about it. Just, hold your hands up and say, yeah, we've done this, we've done that, we've got this, we've got that. And I feel most people will be happy. But obviously, you're going to have others like us that are going to, but what about the details? You're going to get that regardless. But
exactly.
It's just that initial finding out what's really going on, I think. So, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, You never know. Right, and the last question from the viewers is from the UK Dogman, the Dogman UK. Question, DA, I have some pictures on Dogman you might be interested in seeing. It's from the UK in Lincolnshire. Oh,
yeah, I'd love to check them out. You can, if you have me on Facebook, you can send them to my Facebook, or if you want to email me, you can email me at DARoberts@DARoberts.net. I'd love to check them out.
That's easy to remember. Thank you for that. Have you got any other links or anything you'd like to share? I did put most of them in the description.
All of my books and even links to the podcast can be found on my website, which is DARoberts.net. We do a bi-weekly podcast ourselves called DAX Machina, and it's on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Central Time, U.S. There we go. That's my Facebook. Pretty much on all social media, you can find me at D.A Roberts Author. That's pretty much the easiest way to find me. I kind of did that just to be simplified. There's no periods in that, Joe. Just DARoberts.net, no spaces, no periods.
No, just straight.
Just .net.
Yep. Cool.
But that's pretty much where to find me. I've got 30 books currently in print. I've made the Amazon bestseller list a couple of times, which I'm pretty proud of.
Wow.
And I think if I can stay healthy, 30 books is just the beginning. As my catchphrase says, the end is only the beginning. Well, I'm just getting started. I've got a lot more books to go.
At least another 50.
At least.
That's just a start. Have you any more questions, Nicole?
No, but I think we're gonna definitely have to do that book club I was talking about on Wednesday, because we have a lot of books to read now.
Yes. Do you know what? I've had to start getting them on Audible because I drive for a living. I don't really get a chance to actually sit down and read a book. So it's easier while I'm driving around just to listen to it like on podcast. So I've got a list of books that I need to go through, and it's like the list is getting longer and longer. It's like I really do need to start playing these and not just collecting them. But it's good. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
One question that I didn't ask you that I need to. I think it's the most important question of the night. What does the DA stand for?
Well, I don't generally announce that, but I don't generally hear my first and middle name unless my wife is really mad at me. But it's my initials. You'll find me under D.A Roberts, but it stands for Douglas Allen.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I was guessing. I thought it's either David and Andrew, or I don't think he'd come up with Alan. I think I just stuck with David Andrew. I can't remember, to be honest. But anyway, no, it's been absolute pleasure having you on. It's been
my pleasure.
Covered so much, and the fact that we did a lot of like the Bigfoot and the Dogman don't really tend to get that much information from one person. It's more the go through accounts and that, but the way you got into detail about it and like with the books and that, it's just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My wife tells everybody that I'm a fountain of useless information.
Yeah, I get something like that, but not as informative.
Yeah, I know.
I won't repeat what I get told. Sorry, Nicole.
But I know I definitely learned a lot from listening to you today and talking to you today.
Yeah.
Well, one thing to bear in mind is, and again, I will reiterate, there are no experts in this field, and your experience in no way invalidates any experience of anybody else. Same thing with someone else. Their experience doesn't invalidate anything you've experienced yourself, because these are all subjective. Your experience is your experience. What happened to you happened to you. And just because I haven't encountered it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So I'm very open-minded about things, but at the same time, I try to focus, since I spent so much time as a cop, I try to focus as much as I can on physical evidence, because it's going to be much easier to prove that some of these other things are happening once we've established these things exist at all. So until we can, bring them into mainstream science, it's going to be much more difficult to prove some of the more supernatural aspects.
Cool. Thank you. Just before you go, we ran a competition a couple of weeks ago to win a month's paid membership to the YouTube channel and a postcard that I got when I went to Salem in Massachusetts a few years ago. So, would either of you like to pick a number from 1 to 4?
Say we let DA do it. He's the special guest.
1 to 4, 3.
There you go, Joe. Whoever number 3 is has won that. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
All right.
Glad to help.
So, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you, Nicole, for coming on at kind of short notice. Do appreciate that. Literally straight out of work. So just before we go, next Wednesday, we've got Tony Rodriguez coming on. And then on next Friday, we've got Wild Bill. A few more after that, but I'm just going to do it week by week because too much information and I can't keep up. So join us next Wednesday, same time. And we'll have Tony Rodriguez. And then on Friday with Wild Bill. So massive thank you to everyone in the chat. This is also going out on podcast, so you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple, whatever podcast player you're going to listen to. So thank you again, both of you, for coming on. It's been amazing as always.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
No, and hopefully you'll come back on again.
I'd be happy to. Just let me know.
Perfect. Yep, 100%. Right, I'm going to go now. Everyone have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you guys on Wednesday. Take care and goodbye.
Ha 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 ha!